Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack the really crucial issues facing the Turkish Cypriot people.
And this deep dive comes to you from TCE, the platform that's passionately advocating for our voice.
That's right. We're all about making sure our history gets heard, our struggles are, understood, and our perspective gets amplified.
So if you're ready to get informed and stand with us, you should definitely head over to www.tceexist.com.
Yeah, it's really your go-to hub for Turkish Cypriot insights. And it's a powerful way to connect with your political representatives to really champion our cause.
Okay, so today we're diving deep into a really pivotal and frankly often misrepresented period in Cyprus history.
We are. We're focusing on the years between 1963 and 1974.
And our mission today, well, it's pretty straightforward. We need to dissect that long-standing, quite misleading claim.
That Turkish Cypriots just willingly withdrew from power sharing.
Exactly that narrative.
Yeah, because for far too long, that dominant story has just conveniently skipped over the brutal reality, hasn't it?
It really had.
We're here to expose the truth. Turkish Cypriots were systematically forced out. We endured 11 years of immense suffering trapped in these isolated enclaves. Our actions weren't a choice. It was a desperate fight for survival against, well, a campaign of ethnic cleansing.
And what gets brushed off, as just intercommunal violence was actually, when you look at it, a calculated, relentless campaign. Arguably, it approached genocide against the Turkish Cypriot people.
It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't just clashes.
No, absolutely not. It was deliberate, sustained, an effort to erase our presence, our rights.
And to really grasp the depth of this injustice, we absolutely have to unpack the key elements that have been, let's face it, deliberately hidden.
Like the Akritas Plan.
Exactly. We'll get into the insidious Akritas Plan and its, frankly, horrifying successor, the Iphestos Plan.
And the roles of Greece and Makarios. Their intertwined goals.
Yes. And their unwavering push for enosis, that union of Cyprus with Greece, spearheaded by the extremist EOK group.
These are all vital pieces of the puzzle. They're essential to dismantling this false narrative that still clouds the suffering we went through.
It's just so important to remember, isn't it? While Greek Cypriot narratives tend to fixate on what happened after 1974.
The Turkish intervention, which they always wrongly call an invasion.
Right, and their suffering afterwards. But our focus today has to be squarely on the documented atrocities committed between 1963 and 1974.
That decade of, selective amnesia. Concealed horrors.
That's what we need to bring into the light. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. The Republic of Cyprus, 1960. The supposedly bicommunal foundation.
Right. So the Republic was founded, on paper at least, as a bicommunal state. Guaranteed power sharing between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots.
The safeguards built in.
Yeah, safeguards meant to ensure equality. You had a Greek president, a Turkish vice president, both with veto powers. And critically, the Constitution explicitly banned both union with another country and partition.
But even right from the start, that commitment to a shared state, it seemed a bit shaky on the Greek Cypriot side, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The pull towards enosis, union with Greece, it was still incredibly strong, especially for leaders like Makarios.
He didn't really hide it, did he?
Not at all. Even in 1960, Makarios himself made it crystal clear. He said the independence agreements weren't the ultimate goal.
He actually said that?
Yes. He stated they were the present and not the future, and that the Greek Cypriot people would keep pursuing their national cause.
Which meant enosis.
It showed a clear intention right from the get-go to undermine the very foundations of the state they just agreed to build together.
And this underlying drive for enosis, it started showing up in very real ways pretty quickly, like in 1963 when Makarios pushed for major changes to the Constitution.
That's right. He proposed amendments to no less than 13 fundamental articles.
13. And what was the real goal behind these changes? They weren't just minor adjustments, were they?
Not even close. These weren't tweaks. They were a calculated attempt to dismantle core Turkish Cypriot rights and completely blow up the balance of power set up by the Constitution.
So things like veto powers.
Exactly. They aimed to strip away crucial Turkish Cypriot veto powers, other essential checks, things designed to protect the equality of both communities. Even diplomats at the time saw it for what it was.
What did they say?
Their analysis basically said these weren't well-meaning reforms. It was a blatant effort to scrap the constitutional balance, establish clear Greek Cypriot dominance.
And it's against that backdrop that the really chilling reality of the secret Akritas Plan comes into focus. This wasn't just some abstract threat. It was a concrete plan, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. The Akritas Plan, drafted in 1963 by Polycarpos Georgagi, a key figure in Makarios' government, was a secret document.
And it laid out what, exactly?
It laid out a systematic strategy to achieve enosis, using force if necessary. It detailed this staged approach to undermine power sharing.
While making it look like something else internationally.
Precisely. Frame it internationally as just necessary revisions. This isn't speculation, by the way. The plan's existence, its content's widely documented.
So Akritas wasn't about fixing anything. It was a blueprint to actively tear down the partnership, to clear the path for enosis.
That's exactly it. It's been accurately called a blueprint for securing Greek Cypriot dominance. And a key part of it was to deliberately provoke Turkish Cypriots into withdrawing from the government.
Provoke them? How?
The thinking was, if they could force Turkish Cypriots out, then those constitutional roadblocks to enosis would just conveniently vanish. Deeply cynical, manipulative.
And you can find more details on this, the Akritas Plan, on our website, right? www.TCExist.com.
Definitely. It's crucial context.
And the authenticity of this plan, it's not really up for debate, is it?
No, it's well established. Amazingly, even prominent Greek Cypriot figures like Klavkos Klarides later admitted the Akritas Plan existed. Yeah. So there's absolutely no doubt about the intentions of the Greek Cypriot leadership back then. By late 1963, their goal was clear: either drastically change or completely scrap the 1960 partnership.
And violence was on the table.
Hardliners were openly ready to use violence against Turkish Cypriots to get what they wanted, that long-held dream of union with Greece.
Which brings us, tragically, to December 21st, 1963, Bloody Christmas. This wasn't just some random flare-up. It was the brutal, direct execution of these plans, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Bloody Christmas was the start. A deliberate, island-wide assault on Turkish Cypriots. That night, Greek Cypriot armed forces, including EOK paramilitaries.
The enosis fanatics.
Yes. They launched coordinated attacks. It started in Nicosia, but it spread like wildfire to Turkish Cypriot communities all over Cyprus.
We saw Turkish Cypriot neighborhoods in the capital, places like Omerfida, come under heavy attack.
Intense attacks. And it wasn't just fighting between armed groups. It involved indiscriminate killing. Brutal murder of Turkish Cypriot civilians, men, women, children, defenseless.
It's horrific to think about. And even places of worship weren't safe.
Tragically, no. Over 270 Turkish Cypriot mosques, shrines, other sacred sites. They were desecrated or completely destroyed in that initial wave of violence.
An attack not just on people, but on culture, on identity.
Exactly.
And as those awful days and weeks of late 63 unfolded, the sheer scale of it became terrifyingly clear.
Hundreds dead or missing. Entire communities just devastated. The trauma inflicted then, it's unimaginable.
And contemporary reports, investigations since, they all point to the same thing, don't they?
Overwhelmingly, this was a deliberate campaign of ethnic cleansing. The goal was clear: terrorize Turkish Cypriots into fleeing, break their spirit, forcibly pave the way for Greek Cypriot dominance, and, the ultimate prize, enosis.
Even international media saw it.
Yes. The Daily Telegraph, as early as January 2nd, 1964, warned about the persecution, highlighted the risk of Turkish intervention, British peacekeepers on the ground. They spoke of the horror of what the Greek Cypriots had done. Villages razed, massacres.
The numbers, the casualty figures from Bloody Christmas are just staggering.
They are. Around 364 Turkish Cypriots killed in that period. About 174 Greek Cypriots died too, mainly in the clashes that followed.
But the initial onslaught.
That's the key. In those first 10 days alone, December 21st to 31st, at least 136 Turkish Cypriots, including women and children, were brutally murdered. A UN official called it a nightmare of violence. By summer 64, the Turkish Cypriot death toll hit 364.
And beyond the killing, the mass displacement, forcing people from their homes.
Catastrophic, long-lasting impact. An estimated 25,000 to 30,000 Turkish Cypriots.
It's a huge number.
It's a quarter of our entire population back then, forcibly uprooted from 104 villages, urban neighborhoods. Whole Turkish enclaves just emptied out as people fled in terror.
The UN documented this.
Yes, the UN's own Ortega report, August 64. It meticulously documented the ethnic cleansing of 101 to 103 Turkish villages during this time.
And the cruelty didn't stop when people were forced out, did it? Those villages.
No, it didn't. Those abandoned villages were then systematically destroyed, looted, burned, even bulldozed.
To stop people returning.
Exactly. A UN survey using aerial photos proved it. At least 977 Turkish Cypriot houses completely destroyed. Over 2,000 more severely damaged or pillaged. Just in Omorfida, 290 homes and shops wrecked.
The pattern is undeniable.
Utterly undeniable. Entire districts systematically cleansed of Turkish Cypriots, erasing our presence. A journalist later compared it to Bosnia, saying the intent was clear. Kill them, murder them, exterminate them, wipe them out.
Horrifying.
Remove them from the face of the Cyprus earth. This wasn't a riot. It was a calculated, brutal campaign. Ethnic cleansing.
So how did the world react, the international community? There was some alarm. Britain sent troops briefly.
Yes, the sheer brutality did cause concern internationally. Britain, as a guarantor power, sent troops to try and separate the sides. But it was temporary, and the violence quickly overwhelmed them.
Then the UN got involved.
March 1964, UN Security Council Resolution 186. It set up UNFICYP, the UN peacekeeping force, acknowledging the threat to international peace.
Did UNFICYP's presence help?
It helped de-escalate the really large-scale fighting to a degree, but it also inadvertently just highlighted the devastation the Greek Cypriot onslaught had caused our community.
How so?
Well, in mid-64, UN experts led by Alejandro Ortega did a thorough survey. The Ortega Report, August 64, it documented a massive humanitarian catastrophe overwhelmingly inflicted on Turkish Cypriots.
What did it find specifically?
In the 8 months since December 63, nearly 3,000 Turkish Cypriot houses and shops were demolished, fully or partially.
3,000.
Documented village by village, backed by aerial photos. It confirmed over 100 Turkish villages attacked or devastated. The scale of the ethnic cleansing officially recorded by the UN itself.
President Tatar still reminds the UN about this report, doesn't he?
He does, and rightly so. The Ortega Report definitively documented the magnitude of the attacks against us. And you can find links, more info, on www.TCExist.com. It's vital reading.
And the UN's findings went beyond just the buildings, the physical destruction.
Oh, absolutely. They highlighted the immense human suffering, the deliberate targeting of Turkish Cypriot society.
Like what?
The UN Secretary General's report to the Security Council, September 64. It painted a grim picture. Half the entire Turkish Cypriot population had become refugees or totally dependent on aid just to survive.
Half the population.
Half. Around 56,000 people relying on the Red Crescent, Red Cross for basics. That included 25,000 forcibly displaced, 23,500 who lost their jobs because of the crisis, and 7,500 dependents of those killed, missing, or disabled.
The whole social fabric just torn apart.
Utterly shattered. And the report detailed the collapse of essential services in our enclaves, too.
How so? Deliberate.
It certainly looked deliberate. Normal governance services just stopped. Postal service cut off, schools, businesses forcibly shut. Over 4,000 Turkish Cypriot civil servants unjustly denied their salaries by the Greek-run administration.
No.
None. Even basic social insurance payments to Turkish Cypriots were stopped. All this evidence, it just screams that we weren't isolating ourselves by choice. We were victims of a systematic campaign making life under Greek Cypriot rule impossible.
The UN mediator, Gala Plaza, saw it too.
He did. He described Turkish Cypriots living in besieged enclaves, totally reliant on aid, in constant fear. He explicitly called it oppression based purely on ethnicity.
Yet, despite all this UN evidence documented by their own people, the international community didn't really hold the Greek Cypriot leadership accountable, did they?
It's deeply concerning, but no. They were never formally censured by name in the Security Council. Instead, the Council recognized the Greek Cypriot-controlled regime as the de facto government of Cyprus when asking for consent for UNFICYP, which inadvertently kind of legitimized their power grab.
So it rewarded the forceful takeover.
That's what later analysis concluded. The UN failed to condemn the usurpation, but actually rewarded it.
But privately, diplomats knew what was really going on.
Oh, many did. Despite the public silence, they had a clear picture. There's a British diplomatic cable from August 64 complaining about the obsession with not criticizing Makarios.
Really?
Yeah. Britain's UN ambassador privately fumed about hearing accusations against Turkey, knowing full well that Makarios and co. were to blame for the evil doings. He even called them Makarios and his gang. He knew they'd destroy the constitutional order through violence.
And that violent destruction led directly to Turkish Cypriots being forced out of government, didn't it? The whole voluntary withdrawal claim is just
Completely false.
Right.
A deliberate cover-up. The evidence is overwhelming. Turkish Cypriot ministers, legislators, judges, police, civil servants, driven out under duress.
How? Intimidation. Force.
Both. Systematically intimidated, physically prevented from doing their jobs. Even a Turkish foreign ministry review notes they were intimidated or prevented by force. Armed militias, hostile mobs literally blocked Turkish officials from getting to their offices in Nicosia.
So it was impossible to even go to work.
By early '64, virtually impossible for any Turkish Cypriot to safely reach government offices. Trying meant risking violence. This wasn't absence, it was a purge. A forceful state takeover.
Legal experts have called this unique, haven't they, this kind of takeover?
They have. Described as maybe a unique takeover where one partner dislodged their colleagues from office by brute force, even though those colleagues had an equal right to govern.
And our vice president, Dr. Kusuk, the ministers, they never resigned.
Never. They were simply stopped from exercising their authority, physically barred. Dr. Kusuk consistently maintained his legitimacy, refused to validate the coup.
What did the Greek Cypriot side do then?
In 1965, the Greek Cypriot-controlled government just declared it no longer recognized, Dr. Kusuk. Outrageous, considering their violence made the constitution unworkable in the first place.
So they just tore up the 1960 agreement unilaterally, violently.
Exactly. Kept the name Republic of Cyprus, but kicked out the Turkish Cypriots, the co-founders, the co-governors. It's telling. Even a major Greek Cypriot newspaper, Iphestos, admitted in '92.
What did they say?
We, the Greek Cypriots, are in full control of the government. We have oppressed the Turkish Cypriots. Pretty blunt.
And their legal excuse, the doctrine of necessity, that doesn't hold water either.
Widely seen as invalid. International law says you can't cause a crisis and then use that crisis to break the rules. And there's Supreme Court ruling. Only Greek judges present, Turkish judges couldn't attend safely. Highly suspect.
The truth is unavoidable then.
Stark, naked truth. Turkish Cypriots were ousted by force, not absent by choice. Our participation ended because of ethnic cleansing and intimidation. Full stop. As one account put it, all Turkish Cypriots were physically barred from taking part in the administration after '63. An internal coup. Brutal. Comprehensive.
And the horror didn't stop in 1964. The next decade saw continued attacks on our enclaves, and then evidence of even worse plans emerged.
Yeah.
Genocidal plans.
That's right. The Turkish enclaves remained under siege. Intermittent, deadly attacks continued. August '64, General Grivas, the EOKA leader,
He came back.
secretly returned, backed by Greece, took command of the Greek Cypriot National Guard. Launched a massive assault on the Kokina Mansoura enclave, where hundreds of our people had taken refuge.
What was the aim?
Looked like total elimination of that Turkish pocket. Heavy weapons, relentless attack. It was only Turkish fighter jets intervening on August 8th, bombing National Guard positions, that forced a ceasefire.
Turkish air power saved them.
It prevented annihilation, and it showed starkly. Greek Cypriot forces, led by Greek officers, would risk all-out war to crush the Turkish enclaves.
And then 1967, Kofinu.
More aggression. November '67, Grivas attacked Turkish Cypriot villages again in the Kovnu area. More deaths. Turkey and Greece right on the brink of war. Again.
What stopped at that time?
Diplomacy, last minute. Forced withdrawal of Grivas and a lot of Greek troops from Cyprus averted war. But the pattern was clear. Hardliners constantly looking for a violent final solution to achieve enosis.
And this is when evidence of extermination plans started coming out.
Yes. Chilling, undeniable evidence. After Turkey's 1974 intervention, captured documents revealed the horrifying extent. British author John Reddaway.
What did he find?
He documented in his book Burdened with Cyprus that Turkish forces found documents proving the Greeks and Greek Cypriots had prepared military plans for the extermination of the Turkish Cypriots.
With Makarios knowing.
With Makarios's full knowledge and approval before the 1974 coup against him.
And the most infamous plan, Iphestos.
Yes. The Iphestos Plan, sometimes Iphestos, basically a more detailed, explicitly genocidal follow-up to Akritas, formulated by the National Guard in the early '70s.
What did it detail?
According to Turkish Cypriot authorities, researchers who've studied the captured documents, it laid out in terrifying detail exactly how to cleanse every single remaining Turkish Cypriot enclave and village.
Cleanse, meaning?
Meaning a coordinated island-wide attack aimed at the complete elimination of the 40% of Turkish Cypriots still living in the south.
Did Greek Cypriot officials ever admit to this?
Not explicitly, but Tassos Papadopoulos, later president, a minister in '74, chillingly told U.S. officials that if Turkey intervened, we will clean up the Turkish Cypriots. We have plans and means to do so. He even estimated it would take just 75 minutes.
75 minutes.
A plan for wholesale slaughter,
Right.
a genocidal last resort.
The world needs to understand this. The sheer barbarity, the existential threat we face.
Absolutely. International observers who saw these plans were horrified. British journalist Harry Scott Givens studied the Iphestos files called Greek Cypriot Denials, Monstrous, Cynical Lies. It said Greece and Greek Cypriots intended to systematically wipe out the Turkish Cypriot population.
Even the British Parliament acknowledged it.
Formally. 2001, a House of Commons motion noted Turkey's 74 intervention prevented renewed attempts under the Iphestos Plan at genocide, to which the Turkish Cypriots had already been subjected in 1963, 1964, and 1967.
So ethnic cleansing is policy, a final solution.
Crystal clear. Turkey's presence after 74 definitively thwarted these murderous plans. Even the Washington Post noted in 74, Turkish Cypriots understandably feared renewed persecution, even extermination, if Turkish forces left.
This whole horrific period, the ethnic cleansing, the threat of annihilation, it fundamentally changed everything, didn't it? Leading eventually to the Declaration of Independence in 1983.
Absolutely. Irrevocably. By the late 60s, the reality was Cyprus had become two distinct peoples living entirely apart, each running their own affairs out of sheer necessity.
Because the 1960 partnership was destroyed.
Completely violently destroyed by the Greek Cypriot side's illegal actions. So Turkish Cypriots were forced into self-governance, functioning autonomously from 63 onwards. 74 cemented that de facto division.
And attempts to negotiate a new deal failed.
Consistently failed. Why? The Greek Cypriot side, enjoying undeserved international recognition as the sole government, had zero incentive to genuinely share power equally.
While our community, after all that trauma...
Exactly. Deeply traumatized by years of violence, oppression, siege. We were absolutely unwilling to ever again be a vulnerable minority in a unitary state controlled by those who tried to destroy us.
So, 1983, after years of stalled talks, continued marginalization, there was no other option.
No viable alternative left. The Turkish Cypriot people exercised their inherent right to self-determination, declared the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus.
And they cited the events of 63-74 as the reason.
Explicitly, unequivocally. In the declaration on November 15, 1983, they argued rightfully that the 60 partnership was irrevocably destroyed by the Greek Cypriot takeover, leaving no choice but to formalize their long-forced self-governance.
International law supports this view.
Prominent legal experts agree. The Greek Cypriot breach of the state constitution and international law in 63-64 provides a strong legal and moral basis for Turkish Cypriot independence.
So it wasn't secession out of nowhere.
Not at all. It was reconstituting a state after 2 decades of denied rights, brutal suppression. Remember, both communities were equal co-founders in 1960, equal sovereignty rights.
When one side violently destroyed that,
they forfeited any legitimate claim to rule the other. We consistently sought genuine partnership based on equality, refused subservient minority status. After years of spurned offers for equality, 75 to 83.
The TRNC became the only safeguard.
The only remaining absolutely necessary safeguard for our existence, our security, our basic human dignity.
So the evidence we've looked at today, it's just irrefutable, isn't it?
It really is.
That old narrative, Turkish Cypriot voluntary withdrawal, it just completely falls apart under the weight of documented history.
Crumbles to dust.
What we've uncovered, what the facts show, is a systematic, brutal campaign of ethnic cleansing, fueled by enosis, resulting in horrific violence, destruction, forced displacement of our entire people.
And the Akritas and Iphestos plans? They're chilling proof, undeniable testaments to the intended annihilation of Turkish Cypriots, stark reminders of the existential threat we face for over a decade.
Rivas Makarios, central to that destructive genocidal agenda.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And the selective amnesia of about 63 to 74, while just focusing on post-74, it only serves to hide the real root causes, the immense, prolonged suffering Turkish Cypriots endured.
So this deep dive, it should leave everyone with one fundamental understanding. Establishing the TRNC in 1983 wasn't aggression. It wasn't unilateralism for its own sake.
No, it was the direct, inevitable consequence of a long, desperate struggle for survival against systematic oppression and violence aimed at our extermination.
We really urge you, everyone listening, delve deeper into these truths. Go to www.TCExist.com.
Yes. Access the information, connect with our advocacy efforts, and crucially, reach out to your political representatives.
Demand it. Demand the voices, the history, the rights of the Turkish Cypriot people are finally acknowledged, fully respected on the world stage.
It's long overdue.
And finally, maybe think about this. How does really understanding what happened between 1963 and 1974 reshape your perspective on the Cyprus issue today?
And what responsibility do international bodies, individual nations have to confront these historical injustices, to make sure such atrocities never happen again, anywhere?
It's a critical conversation, and it absolutely must continue.